So guys, we decided to do this webinar, this event, because we strongly believe that passion journey and passion experience, it's really a key factor for many students. And it's never too early to start, much more at this age, what we are normally talking about. It's let's say 10th grade to 12th grade. It's a really critical age because it's also when they're called to decide the college, called to decide what next in their life. And many times you face the problem, the question, what is good for me? What I will be up to? Sometimes you love a subject, but the subject career is not what you're looking for. So this passion project is a way to support you in this research and maybe come up with a better answer. So we are very happy to have all of you here, and we want to welcome to this amazing event based on discovering the transformative power of passion project, because we believe that it's never too early to start and exploring your interest and passion and to channel them in a meaningful way that will bring up a concrete passion project with a tangible outcome. So today we are here with our team, exceptional team, to discuss this. Hopefully now Flo will join us and she will be leading the call as the moderator, while Ishita and Ruben, that are already on the call, will share their insight on their fascinating topic. So let's start to break the ice and start to talk about it, while hopefully Flo will join us, otherwise we will just move ahead. So Ishita, Ruben, I'll let you speak a little to introduce yourself. And let's move ahead.
Sure. Should I go first, Ruben?
Yeah, go, Ishita.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Hello, everyone. The panelists and the attendees over here. I'm Ishita Parak, and I am at Ascend Now as an entrepreneurship educator. When I'm not teaching at Ascend Now, I am either singing and songwriting, because that's my passion project, and I'm also working on a startup of my own, which is helping music professionals get sort of work by monetizing their services and monetizing their talents. So that's all about me, and I'm so excited to talk to all of you about the passion projects that I've done with my students throughout these 2 years that I've been with Ascend Now.
Thanks, Ishita. Ruben?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruben Fruit. So I work at a company called Stryker as a sales and marketing specialist for the MedSurg division. Before that, I've done a few different experiences across different franchises, from startups to big companies, just exploring what different pathways look like for me. I did a BBA in business administration from IE University a couple of years ago, and just recently started working together with Ascend Now, taking on some entrepreneurship courses with the students. So really interested to dive a bit deeper into this space, and very thankful for the opportunity to talk to you today.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Ruben. So let's move to the first question that we thought for you. So to help you understand your passion project and what is a passion project, we formulate some key questions that we think will help us to guide you over the journey. So let's go with the first one. Define a passion project. What do you mean by that term? So what is the answer, guys?
So we actually did come up with a short sort of compilation of what we think a passion project is. And here is the definition. Passion projects are student-led initiatives that enable them to turn their interests or passions into practical projects. And we say practical because we actually help these kids to implement their projects in real life by interacting with real, situations and people. And it could be either for profit or non-profit, which allows them to showcase their skills and face real life challenges. So would you like to put it differently, Ruben?
Yeah, no, I think that's a very comprehensive definition. I think from my perspective and a personal level, it's really just about formulating some kind of strategic plan in order to turn an idea, an objective, a goal of yours into something that's actionable and realizable. So it's really about building that framework, the tools, getting the support that you need in order to take an idea or a dream or an abstract concept and really bring it into fruition. So it's quite a vague concept, I'm aware of that, but I think it's something which is very exciting that we can talk about in more detail.
Yeah. And just to touch upon the term vague you used for that, and it is vague because it allows for including a lot of different kinds of projects that are possible for a child to do in a lot of different ways. So as much as we want things to be specific, I think a passion project is good that it's vague, you know?
Definitely, yeah. It's I think just a big opportunity, particularly for students where they're more confined in an academic environment around what are their objectives. It's very much driven around knowledge-based and certain topics that you need to cover. This is really opening to the variety of different things that may interest and stimulate the individual on their own level. What are things that are interesting to me? They could be academic related, but they may not be. And there are things that you have the ability and now the frameworks in order to dive deeper into these areas and really build an understanding. And more than that, an appreciation for that topic in much more detail.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. It is such a perfect way to make the child realize that there's more to academics. There's something beyond academics, and it helps them expand their horizons. It helps them find themselves and their interests, and also correct their interests sometimes, you know, like
Yeah, definitely.
when they think that, oh, this is what I like, but when they actually go into it and when they actually go ahead and implement it, they realize, oh, maybe this is not something I want to do all the time.
Definitely, definitely. I think it's a great tool for self-discovery.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Perfect. And why do you think it's different? I would like to ask you guys, since you took a little bit up the topic, the difference between passion and interest. How can you define that difference in that terminology? Because you use that in a different way, no, over the discussion now. So how can we define, can you try to give a definition, and what do you think are different, passion and interest?
It's a good question. Yeah. Gishita, you want to go first?
No, that's okay if you want to go first.
Well, and this is just me thinking off the top of my head, but I suppose you could look at an interest more on the superficial. Like, this is an area where I am drawn to it. It's something that excites me, something that I want to learn more about, something that maybe I don't understand right now. And you could really look at passion more as a deeper level understanding and appreciation for an area or topic. So it's really from an interest, you develop a passion where you have now done more research, spent more time understanding, learning, developing this idea, this area of interest, and you develop into such an area where you can appreciate it from a much deeper level. And that becomes, I suppose, a higher level appreciation where you get to that passion level.
Yeah. And I would just put it this way, that it's actually just the same thing that you just said, but a passion is basically an interest that you're willing to survive the learning curve for. You know, you're willing to go through all the ups and downs of the learning curve for that particular interest. We're willing to go to any lengths to, you know, continue doing it because you're just passionate about it. So I guess that's if you find something like a passion early on, you're actually setting yourself up for success early on as well. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good point about the learning curve that you just mentioned there, because I think as you go through things and you dive deeper into literally anything you apply yourself in life, you're gonna, I usually, you know, the usual curve where at the start it's amazing, you're learning so much and everything's so exciting and new, but then you're gonna hit certain roadblocks or peaks where you're like, wow, to get any further in this, it's hard. I need to work, I need to plan, or maybe this is just not for me and it's a good time to turn around and cut my losses and find something else which I care for more. But exactly. Yeah, exactly like you said, to get past those peaks and troughs, it's that passion that will carry you.
Exactly. That's why I use the word survive, because when you're in that curve and when you're on the lower part of it and you can survive that, then definitely you're passionate about it.
Exactly. And this links us to the second question. How can a passion project help me? You bring up this topic a little bit now by telling the survive and how this can help you to bring up your idea and work on them. So how the passion project help you guys?
So we actually touched upon a few points when defining a passion project, that it helps expand horizons and it helps students think beyond academics. I also feel that, it helps them sort of build new skills under a good guide that can help nudge them in the right direction. So they might be able to do passion projects on their own, but if they do it on their own, their sort of time duration of how they execute it will be much longer compared to if they had a guide to help them do it, and if they had, some skills that were given to them or that they were helped to develop while doing it. So I guess, especially in the context of Ascend now, I feel that that is something that a passion project can help a kid with.
Yeah, I think adding on to what Ishita has shared, I think as we discussed a little earlier, for me, a passion project, so much of the benefit is really in that personal development and self-discovery. I think that whole process that we were just talking about, Ishita, about that up and down and the challenges and tribulations of the journey, those are such moments of self-discovery where you can really learn about yourself. What am I good at? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What do I like? What am I interested in? What are my passions? And it helps you nudge you in directions of focus and study that can help you figure out what it is that you want to do with your time. It helps teach you, I think, so many different things that go beyond just the core of academics in terms of understanding yourself, teaching you leadership, time management, people management, research skills, so many different aspects that go beyond what you normally would do. In addition to that, I think it just helps to provide such a strong sense of self-confidence and belief. When you start to see that you're able to turn something that you thought was impossible into reality, and you start to break it down and build those little small objectives along the way, and you start ticking them off, you start to believe, wow, I can do this. This is not ridiculous. This is actually achievable. I can, start a business. I can start a passion. I can become an expert in this field. There's so many things that are limitless to you.
Absolutely. I think you covered most of the points. And I would like to say that, especially like in the Asian context, there are so many parents, like people are getting progressive by the day, but there are still so many parents that give so much more importance to academics. That's the kind of background that I came up from, like I was brought up in as well. So if I think that if there was like a tool, or if there was a company like Ascend now that would have like opened our eyes to the importance of passion projects and, building your holistic portfolio, not just with the perspective of getting into a good college, but just for yourself, just for personal growth, then I would have sort of found my interests and passions early on and, be able to shape them early on. And just the fact that these kids are getting that opportunity is pretty exciting, because they can easily, make mistakes right now and figure out where they are finding their interests and where they want to finally go. It's just the best time to go ahead with it. And like you said, the things that they thought were impossible, and they feel that they can now do it with the help of a guide, then it just increases self-confidence so much.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. I like the fact that it helps build self-confidence and, to help people explore all their passions earlier on. So the next question that I would like to pose to you is, how can somebody who is interested in doing a passion project start right now, after this call? How does somebody then, decide to start?
I feel that you can start by first listing down all your interests. So list down everything that you're interested in. That's how we usually start with our students as well. Say, for example, you're interested in sports or something artistic, or maybe you have some academic interest as well. Maybe you are someone who is really inclined towards a particular subject. Just write those down and then sort of go into what are some problems that people are facing in those interests and in those fields? Like academically, what are some problems that students are facing in sports? What are some problems that not just students but sportsmen are facing? Like, I'm giving you very specific examples, but the process is basically to find what you're interested in and then go ahead with finding a problem in that area and try and see if you can come up with a solution for that. And it could be something for profit, it could be something that is non-profit. That's up to you. That's up to how you want to do it. But I guess these 3 steps would be an ideal way to go about it. What do you think, Ruben?
Yeah, no, I think that's essentially the core blocks of how you would approach it. I think just to add on to that, I'd say that the process really starts with opening yourself up and being vulnerable to the idea of just being creative and being open to trying new things. That's the first thing, like, because when you're going on a passion project route, right, like a lot of times you're doing something that you're very unfamiliar with, that you don't know much about, and that there's probably a good chance of failure. So it's really just being open and understanding that I'm comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's the start, right? And then building off from that, like you said, it's really just about figuring out what are the things that I care about, what am I interested in, what excites me, and who can I serve? If you can put those things together, then you can start thinking about what does it look like for me to figure out an idea that serves these purposes. Like it's really like a long journey, a passion project. I think a passion project could last your whole life. Like, and really it's just about starting. So it's like taking that first step, which is scary. Like, don't get me wrong, like starting something totally new and you don't know anything about it, that's freaky. But it's that bravery to just take that first step, get out there, meet people, talk to people, connect with people, do your research, look about what information exists about this topic already that I can just leverage and learn from for free without any effort. Like, what are the low-hanging fruit here? Are there people that I can connect with, that can support me, guide me, mentor me? I think that's the biggest thing, right? Just finding people around you that have similar interests, similar beliefs, similar ways of thinking. And yeah, just like Ishita said, is building out that model, the steps, the objectives that you want to take to get there, and just continuously evaluating where you're at and seeing, do I need to pivot? Do I need to change? Do I need to continue, stop?
Yeah, I love how you put it, especially those 3 questions that you mentioned, what excites me. And you mentioned one more thing about, who can I serve? So I think those questions, if the students answer, they would be able to really get something that falls into that ikigai Venn diagram.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, these are the things that I have to kind of tick off, and then that is what I have to do. I think that'll work out perfectly for the students. And I have just one more suggestion for you guys. No matter how you're going about the passion project, if you're trying to do it on your own, and even if you're doing it with the help of a guide, do not dwell too much on how amazing your idea is. And that applies to even the entrepreneurial aspect that we work on. A lot of students are like perfectionists, and we understand, like, you want to get it right and you think that this is it. But trust me, if you feel that your idea is even, say, 30% okay, and you feel excited enough to go forward with it, just go ahead with the research. Just like Ruben said, talk to mentors, talk to people who are already in the field, and try and see what kind of challenges have they faced. Can you kind of find a different perspective towards it? So don't give up too soon, or do not, change your idea too soon. Try and go deeper into it before you change, and try and do at least one basic thing before you change your idea and think that, oh, no, this won't work. Let me just try something new. So my suggestion is to go deeper with everything, every project that you take up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if I may add just quickly, I just had another thought was, I feel like in my experience so far with working with students, and also I guess in my own personal journey where I was doing work with entrepreneurship, a lot of the time I personally, and I feel like students also get stuck on the idea of having to find a huge issue in the world that's going to change the entire planet. It's going to solve climate change, it's going to solve poverty, it's going to change the whole world. I think it's so important to look what is addressable in my community? Who are people around me that I can influence? What are things that I can take that first step first? Because if you want, there's no reason to hold yourself back and say, I can't change the world. But it's important to start off with an objective, which I can actually get to first and figure out something which is actionable. And then by all means, reevaluate, dream bigger.
Yeah, and don't think that simple is frivolous. Simple can be powerful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. So, you know, if somebody has a vague idea or has a couple of ideas, sorry, I'm just going on to the previous question. And in terms of starting, you know, will Ascend now then be able to help somebody define, you know, their passion project further when they, you know, in terms of starting it?
Sorry, I did not get the last part of the sentence.
Okay.
In terms.
So let's say one of the students has got maybe an idea or several ideas or doesn't know how to go about it and they really want to start. How can Ascend now then help? Like, is there a process that is followed in order to develop this further?
Okay, it's actually a very good thing if the student already has 4 to 5 ideas. I think the fact that they do will actually help the Ascend Now guide to sort of talk to them about each one and, you know, list pros and cons for each one. And these pros and cons can be both in relation with what the student is interested in, what the student's skills are, and what's possible. So those things have to be taken into account before we can go ahead with the project. But basically, Ascend Now will help have a conversation with the student and try and work out how a implementable project can be chosen. Right, Ruben?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, thank you. All right, can we go on to the next question? Which is basically, what kind of passion projects can I do as a student? What, you know, what kind of passion projects can somebody do?
I would like to go into the specific examples. So Ruben, if you want to touch upon the general aspect first.
Yeah, no worries. So I think as we've been saying from the beginning, the passion projects are somewhat intentionally vague. Like there's so many different ways that you can apply yourself. You can be passionate about just about anything in the whole world and find a way that a problem that you want to solve and figure out a way to do that. But I mean, off the top of my head, there's so many different ways. For example, you may have an interest in a particular issue, whether that is, I don't know, gender equality or poverty or climate change or a certain part of a project that you think is exciting, a new toy, a new product, a new service that could help make things better. That could come out in a business, come out as an NGO, could come out as a project, a foundation, a community even. It could be a blog, video series. There's so many different ways that you can apply yourself to really just look at this interest and how can I develop it? How can I learn more about it? How can I help people through it? And also, I think it's also, how can I connect with other people with the same passion? That's a really important part, because there's no need to do this on your own. I think when you're doing a passion project, whether that is a business or not, it's so helpful to have a community of people around you with similar interests. So finding that is something very important.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Finding that community, a lot of books, self-help books that are super successful say that having a community really helps you succeed. So I 100% attest to that. I would like to give a few examples of passion projects that I've done with students. So I've seen that, especially in like shorter courses where we're not exactly focusing on implementing, but just ideating an idea. A lot of students like to go for mental health options. Somehow they're so aware of the developments in the world and how a lot of people are suffering from mental health issues, that I was surprised by how many students wanted to do work regarding mental health. Like they developed websites where they would get therapy sessions, or they provided some kind of tools that would help, like journaling, and tools that you could purchase from the website that would help you sort of feel better. And then there were so many kids who want to solve gaming addiction. Like there are kids who realize that I'm addicted to games, and there are many more kids like me around me. So I want to do something to solve that. Like as soon as we tell them we have to find a problem to solve, they think, oh, we're really addicted to games. That's what all my parents say all the time, and that's what we want to solve. A few others that are there are, I just want to mention 2-3 more that were really successful. I had 2 students who worked on building a website to help other small businesses build a website. So you know how there are solopreneurs who sort of are not very tech friendly. So these 2 students, they individually helped a bunch of small businesses set up their social media, do their market research, and create their websites. They also earned a significant amount with those services. And there was one kid who did a thrift clothing business. He asked his friends to donate clothes to him, and he would give them a small commission and sell them for a profit, and then take that profit and give it to a fund. So yeah, I can go on and on. There are so many amazing ideas that I've worked with, and you can do something completely different. You could do a YouTube channel, you could do a podcast, you could do a blog, like Ruben mentioned. These days, the options are infinite.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, the barriers to entry to start are never lower than today.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like it's really, really about following your passion and, doing whatever you can in order to solve problems in the community. So one of the, questions that I'll have as the next question is, we're living in an evolving world and things are constantly changing and people are looking towards the future. Most of the time you go to school to prepare for the future, but with the future constantly evolving, how can a passion project then prepare you for an evolving future?
According to me, I feel that there is no one way to answer that question, because like the question says, it's an ever evolving world, and we just have to sort of equip ourselves with those core skills that help us work smarter, not harder, every time we face an adversity. So there was this one discussion that we had when Ruben mentioned that these days tools are being created every day that could basically make an entire sort of profession obsolete. And ChatGPT is a very good example of that, and how it is basically taking away content writing jobs left, right, and center. So in situations like that, students just need to be mindful of the skills that help them stay relevant all the time, no matter whether it is individual skills or skills that they need to run their business or run their project. They need to work on both at the same time. So these skills could be something like just, having really strong research skills. So constantly keeping yourself, knowledgeable and aware about what is happening around the world, what are some new developments, and how you can already prepare for them in advance. I think research is very important when it comes to that. And apart from that, what else could be? What do you think, Ruben? I'm not able to think of any other skills right now.
No,
What other skill do you think would be efficient, could make a student efficient to deal with the future?
Right. So I think as we've been talking about throughout the presentation, like our traditional academic system has been largely very knowledge-based and driven in that way, right? And
Yeah.
when you have these advances in technological leaps that we're seeing, what we're figuring out is that it's not really anymore about what you know. It's more about how am I able to use that information to figure something out, right? It's about how can I apply this information in a new way that creates value. The ability to remember information and pull it out, that's not really as important anymore. You can just go on the internet and check it out, and there you go. You got your answer. So it's really about changing the way we look at things. And I think in that way, developing a passion project is really setting you up for the skill sets that are going to differentiate you and make you valuable in a future workforce, whether that is your own company or another company. You know, it's the skill sets and mindsets, I think, that set you up for success. Things like being agile, being able to critically think, being able to deal with unstructured environments where things are constantly changing around you. If you're doing a passion project, I'm telling you, every day you're going to be faced with a different challenge, a different situation. And it's your ability to deal with those kind of challenges and problem solve that's going to really make you different and set you apart. So I think that, yeah, a lot of these things are a bit scary, but they're also exciting in many other ways, right? Like they do, as we said earlier, lower that barrier to entry to start. Like to start a business before the internet was a total different ball game. Like it's a lot more easy now to get out there. The barriers to entry, the cost to start, it's much lower, and I think it's only going to get lower. So I would say it's never been a better time to get into things, whatever it is that you're interested in. We have so much more ability to do these things where less of our time is spent doing repetitive, menial things. And I think that's a great thing for all of us. I think that's something that we don't need to be fearful of and embrace. I think to add on to that, I just want to share, I think, a slightly personal example of how passion projects sort of led me to where I am today. Not that it's the end product, but, you know, like, for example, with me going through life, I would describe myself as someone that didn't grow up with a very clear direction or passion in life. You know, like I have lots of friends who from the day they were born were like, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a scientist. I was not that kid. I've always just like, I don't really know. I like doing a lot of different things, and that's what I do. So as I'm sure many students face, I went through the whole college round where you're like, what do you want to study? And I don't know. So for me, I was fortunate because in Singapore, they make you do 2 years of national service in the army. So that gave me a bit more time. And through that process, I would describe that as a form of a passion project where I was really working in a leadership position, working with people, working with teams, cultures, and that pushed me into realizing I like this. I like managing people. I like doing projects. So let's study business. Let's try that. And then through business, you know, like I started a new passion, looking into entrepreneurship, starting a business, and that led me down a whole different kind of worms of new adventures and new learnings and new developments. And then from there, you know, I want to work in a startup. Let me go find a startup company to go and intern and train with. And from there, I got started doing strategy. I'm like, oh, strategy is amazing. I like strategy now. And then from strategy, you know, I graduated and I'm like, what do I do with strategy? Let's find a job in strategy at whatever company it is. I don't care. And that led me into medical technology, which is where I work now. And then from there into sales. And basically my point is that you don't necessarily, if you do have a dream from the start, that's awesome. Please do it, but don't be afraid of not knowing either. Like life is very, very, you know, open to you if you're able to accept what comes. And I think that those mindsets and those skill sets that you'll pick up from doing repetitive passion projects, whether that be one through your whole life or many through life, it's going to give you so many tools to figure out what you want to do and guide you.
I love what you said. And I also loved your story about how you went from skill to skill to skill and then found that one sort of niche that you wanted to work on. I think that's really inspiring for any student if, you know, when they watch this, it's really inspiring to see that someone who did not even know what they wanted to do went from that to finding something so specific that they really enjoying. Yeah. And about like just to answer this question one last time, like some skills that you can keep with you throughout your life would be research skills, creativity, and soft skills, and thinking on your feet, right? Like, I think these 4 skills, I think, would be really, really effective for you to stay relevant, no matter where you are.
Okay. I think thinking on your feet will definitely help you, you know, however the world goes, you'll be able to find solutions. So now we're just going to look at some key takeaways. I don't know if you'd like to maybe jump in, Ishita and Ruben, and just discuss some of the key takeaways that we've now looked at throughout the whole discussion. And, you know, just so that people can have a fresh idea of, you know, how to approach everything.
Absolutely. We'll just take it one by one. I think practical approach to personal interests, that's what we started this discussion with. Students will get an opportunity through these passion projects to be able to see the practical side of things, both in a positive light and a negative light, and actually be able to realize if they are even cut out for that particular thing that they thought that they were interested in, or maybe find something that, you know, that they more aligned with. So the practical aspect of passion projects really changes up things for you. You can't say that, you know, I'm interested in this anymore. You have to say, I have worked on this and I know about this now. Yeah. What do you think, Ruben?
Yeah, I think that's a really key takeaway, right? Like, it's really just about how do I transform? I think honestly, the question that Ariana posed at the start caught me off guard, but it's a very good point. How do I transform an interest into a passion, right? And that differentiator between the two, and how really what brings you from one to the next is that deeper knowledge, deeper understanding, and deeper appreciation.
Absolutely. And then we have, sorry to cut you off, Flo. I'm just like going one by one. So personal growth and skill development, I feel that that goes again in the same tone of what we were talking about in terms of, you know, being able to expand your horizons, being able to holistically develop yourself, because doing a passion project requires you to make so many different decisions, requires you to upskill yourself in so many different ways, that and it almost happens automatically because you have set this one goal and you know that you have to achieve it, and almost subconsciously you're automatically, you know, skilling yourself with things that you wouldn't have thought that you would ever do. You know, it just happens because you want to achieve that one goal. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that, I mean, personally, just to shed a bit of light on my experience in the recent Ascend Now entrepreneurship course. This is a course that I taught to 12-year-olds, and personally, it was covering the same kind of content and tools that I was learning in my university course. And I wish I'd had that same opportunity and skill set and mindset taught to me at such a young age. I think that just really is setting you up, allowing you to realize that all these things are at your fingertips and are so achievable if you just use the right framework, tools, skill sets, and just get to know people, apply yourself. There's so much opportunity.
Exactly. And I'll be the devil's advocate here by saying that because there are barriers to there are low barriers to entry, there are a lot of people who are able to do this. So there's higher competition. So if you have a guide helping you sort of maneuver your way through a passion project, then you're already, you know, setting yourself up for maybe a certain level of success, not a guaranteed success, but at least you'll get wherever you want to get slightly faster.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's also important to remember that it's not necessarily about the destination either, because that will change as you go along the process. Really just remembering that the value you're getting is the journey along the way, the skills you're learning, the people you're meeting, and yeah, the people you're helping as well.
Yeah, exactly. That being the focus, actually. And that actually perfectly brings us to the third point, which is it gives us an insight into life direction, because maybe this passion project that you're discovering and that you're trying to work on becomes your one and only project for life. Maybe you like it so much that you actually want to, keep working on it after college, after school, and, it sort of consumes you in every way. So it could either be that, or you discover that an interest you thought was something that could have turned into something significant was actually not something that could have. So you change your path and then you find something else that you could occupy your time with.
Definitely. I think as you shared, and as I shared earlier, like there's so many different ways to cut this out, in terms of what you want to do with your time in this world. You don't need to be focused on necessarily honing in on what is my single purpose in life. If you have one, that is brilliant. And I think that's so great and special. I wish I was you. But don't feel like you're any less because you don't have that either. Like explore whatever excites you. Start with the interest. As we shared earlier, start with the interest, find the passion. That's going to be a journey.
Yeah, start with the interest, find the passion. That is just the perfect way to go about it. And then, of course, we have early exposure to real world scenarios. And that is everything that we've been talking about, like Ruben's story and my story, and mostly like everybody else who's teaching entrepreneurship and passion projects at Ascend now. That's what they say all the time, that, oh, I wish we had this when we were younger, because we would have loved to, apply, actually implement our passions into projects when we were younger and sort of see where it went and where it could have gone. Maybe our life trajectories could have been completely different if we had done that. But yeah, I guess passion projects really help you see everything from a real life perspective.
Yeah, I think, as you said, it's really just about learning and I think developing skills that will serve you in life, whether that is starting your own business or working for another in any capacity. It's having that exposure at an earlier age is only going to be to your benefit.
Absolutely. And I think now we have started to get some questions. So I'll just quickly go over the last point, which is the expansion of horizons and the problem solving skills, which we kind of covered in the points above. But passion projects are really going to help the student expand their skill set, expand their way of thinking. They'll start thinking beyond academics. They'll start thinking about bigger problems than what they usually think about in day-to-day life. And the problem-solving mindset, it'll really help them sort of look at all problems that way. Whenever they encounter a problem, they'll not think about the negative emotions attached to it, but in fact, rather how I can solve it.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just tying on to that, it's really just helping to connect the dots, right? Because of course, what your academics is critically important, and all the skills and knowledge that you're learning in there has so much value. And this really is just an additional capacity and allows you to connect the different bits of information that you have learned and apply it in a way where it's actually tangible. So it's really just that skill set of how do I bring an idea to life, and the skill sets that you need to achieve that.
Absolutely. I think we have a
Yes, we got a
question.
couple of questions. One, how can we define if a project is feasible or not? Like doable? How do you define? How can a student share with you an idea? You can say, okay, there are some ideas we all understand that can be more difficult, more easy to judge, but some idea might look feasible. And then over the journey, you realize that we're not that feasible. So how can we define this? If there is any technique, there is any suggestion, anything you believe should be taught at the beginning of this process?
I feel like if we're speaking generally, we will first need to see that can we kind of scale it down to like something that is like a measurable goal. You know, if it is, suppose if it is impact related, how can I impact one person? And then will I be able to scale it up further if I kind of use that same formula again? So I think scaling it down and kind of having that discussion about, will I be able to help this one person? And if it is not impact based, if it is sales based, like selling a product or something or selling a service, that's usually easier. So how will I procure that one product, and how will I make that one sale? I think it all starts with that. And if you're able to kind of come down with like a formula of making that one thing work, that one impact, that one sale work, then you can just kind of, repeat it and go ahead with it. What do you think, Ruben?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think it's also being able to find the connection between what are the skill sets that I have and what are the services or products or ideas that are needed. And ideally, if you can mesh the two, then you're onto a winner. And it's really just diving a little bit deeper. I think it's that initial research phase is very important. Whether that be primary, secondary, reading articles, learning, talking to people, that building that foundation and understanding and appreciation for the idea, the space, the industry, how it all connects together, and how the ideas that I have in my head will play a role in that place. Once you have that sort of contextual understanding of where your idea sits in the wider picture, it helps you better understand whether or not you are even feasible or not. I think moving forward from there, if from a business perspective, if you were to take a look and start decompartmentalizing, what are the different aspects that I want to run? How am I going to run them? Is this something that we can afford to do, fund? How are we going to do that? I mean, these are things that you will sort of start thinking as you develop the idea deeper. And then I suppose once you've built out that business plan, proposition, by the end of that, you should have a pretty good idea of what are my next steps and what are the things that I need to do? And are these things which I can do? I think those are things you need to be honest with yourself about as well.
Yeah, absolutely agree with you. Especially the thing about having a lot of research done, talking to a lot of people, kind of aligning it with your interests, and then seeing if you can afford it and if you have the skill set for it. These three things are like really important in order to check feasibility. Yeah.
Okay, simply break it down to the real life, to the daily life, and
Yeah.
see what the market is acting around me. Okay.
Yeah.
And we have another question for you. Let me just read. Okay, move down. How can a mentor help students to scale their project, especially if the student feel complacent about their project? What do you think, guys?
I feel that it's like a very specific kind of thing, like it depends on the kind of project that we have. Scaling a project that is tech-based, which is like service-based, is very easy because you can easily do like a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad or a LinkedIn ad, and you'll be able to reach a lot of eyes. So anything that is tech-based is very easy. But if it is impact-based, that's when it gets a little tricky, when it is nonprofit, when it's a nonprofit trying to cater to a specific section of society in a specific place, then it is a little tricky because once you've kind of touched the lives of everybody in one place, how do you find more such people? So that's when it gets slightly tricky. I guess the guide would be able to help in terms of providing contacts in different places. And, you can try and implement that same idea in a different city remotely. But again, it depends so much on what your project is and how we can turn that around to, reach more people. So I just feel that if it's service-based, you're good to go. No problem. But if it is impact-based and if it's like for a specific section of society, and if they don't have access to tech, then that's when it'll slightly get tricky, but our guides will be able to help you get the right contacts. What do you think,
Okay.
Ruben?
Okay. Ruben?
Yeah, I think additionally to that, it's fundamentally just about providing that support network and the framework to deal with the problems that arise. A lot of the times these things can be quite unstructured, it's not as simple as there is a right answer. A lot of the times it's very much needing to weigh up a variety of variables and a limited amount of understanding and knowledge that is available to you in that moment, and making the best decision on how to move forward from these things. And I think that's where a mentor can step in and help to advise and help to nudge in a certain direction. In terms of complacency about the project, I would say that the fundamental, I suppose, secret sauce to a passion project is that passion in itself. So a mentor can't give you the passion, but I think what they can do is help provide a sense of accountability, really holding you to objectives and goals and moving you along in that process to help you get to where you're trying to get to.
And to remind you about what your passion was when you are feeling low about something, you know, like when you're not feeling confident enough, the guide can help with, you know, that mental support that the student often needs.
Cool. Last question. Do universities prefer to see specific projects on my profile to stand out? So they want to see specific projects. Do we know there is any specific project that they prefers the university, or no? Any project can be fine if it's done properly.
In my opinion, what universities are always looking for is how much of an individual are you, you know, as a whole, like how much have you discovered yourself and how much are you willing to own up about yourself in your application? Like, have you defined yourself as an individual? So anything that aligns with your passion, and you've done something about it, like you had an interest, you sort of just mentioned it in passing in your statement of purpose, but you did not do anything about it. That's not as impressive as saying that I was really interested in this and I went ahead and did my research and I took this action and I helped these, set of people. That is really impressive for universities. They see that as, a doer rather than a thinker, like the student becomes a very valuable sort of asset to the university that way. That's what I feel like. Just that just makes a passion project, shows that you made an effort in your area of interest, and you were able to. It doesn't even matter what your result was, but the fact that you tried and the fact that you impacted a set of lives, I think that itself counts for universities. What do you think, Ruben?
It's an interesting question. I mean, I'm not a university counselor or acceptance committee type person myself, but I think from my own perspective, my own opinion, I think much like what Ishita said, it's how do you differentiate yourself from an interest into a real idea that's tangible. And I think that it's showing that initiative that's going to really help differentiate you. It's going that extra step from I've been interested in this to I actually love this thing and I'm doing all these things in it. Let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you what I've learned. Let me show you the steps that I've taken to develop myself and advance myself in this. It's going to make all the difference in how you come across. And really along the way, the things that you will learn more than the topic will learn about yourself. That self-awareness, that's going to help you a ton. A lot of these times when, at least for me with university applications, so much of it is about how well do you know yourself, which honestly, for most people at the age of 18 or 20 years old is generally not a ton. And these are really experiences that will help you with that process of understanding what motivates me, what drives me, what do I care about, what do I like, how do I work, who do I like working with, how do I like working with other people, do I like working in teams, do I like working on my own, do I like working in unstructured environments, structured environments. I like working in strict rules and guidelines or in abstract concepts. There's so many different ways to understand yourself. And I think that having that understanding at an earlier age is only going to be a huge benefit to you as you go through this process.
And absolutely agree with that. And I just want to add one more thing to that. It's an example of a student I had who was applying for university, and he was struggling with writing his statement of purpose. But then because of introducing a passion project in his curriculum, it sort of answered all the questions, all the problems that he was facing. So he basically encountered this sort of mildly traumatic experience where he was mistaken as I think I don't know how to put this politely, but as a rejected individual of the society. And because of being that way, he was taken to the police station by the police. He was just walking on the footpath, and he was taken by the police just because they thought that he was up to something mischievous when he was just walking on the footpath. And even though it sounded pretty simple, and the way that they explained it later, it sounded pretty racist. So we came up with this idea of how he can sort of start a movement to help people who are, facing similar issues, and sort of start a protest and nonprofit organization that helps people who face things like this. So he made something that was small but traumatic for him into a passion project associated with a story, and he had something to talk about in his, application, and that made it super impressive.
Okay, thank you so much, Ishita. And that makes sense. I mean, bring up, let's say, personal case, personal story, personal experience, and make it out as a passion where you see there is a contribution you can do. Let's say that is the idea behind a passion project. So thank you so much for your time, Ishita and Ruben. It was amazing to have you on the call. Also, Flo, though was a little bit some technical issue, but finally we got you on the call. So Flo can you please introduce yourself a little bit, because at the beginning I skip you for technical reasons, but can you please share about you a little bit?
Okay, so my name is Poliswa and I am based in South Africa. So unfortunately, we have a couple of challenges here with our connectivity and electricity. So sometimes we have these problems, but otherwise, I work on some passion projects, and then I personally do writing and a couple of entrepreneurship things. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Flo, to join us and to be the moderator for this amazing call. Thanks again, Ruben and Ishita, to join us and to share your experience and knowledge and your passion.
Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. So have a nice evening, and thanks once again, everyone.